For this last lesson, I'm going to be adding dimensions and adding fillets to the object. So if you notice it says fillets radius is 1/4 inch, that's the default unless it tells me otherwise. So let's go ahead, because I'm going to do that first, let's go ahead and select our object lines and make sure that's the current layer. Sometimes when you're working on layers and others are turned off, they'll disappear and you don't know where they are. So you want to make sure that you're on the right layer. And then what I'll do is on the menu above, I'll go ahead and in the command line type in fillet. And so you want to make sure that you select radius here. And I'm going to do the default one, which is 0.25 first. So go ahead and type in 0.25 or 1/4 inch and push enter. And then I'm going to select the two corresponding lines based on my drawing. And you'll notice that the radius automatically appears. And I can just go ahead and push enter. I don't need to type in the fillet command again if it's the same size. So everything that's 1/4 inch, go ahead and just push enter between the commands. And so we're going to go ahead and do another radius here. And this radius is actually going to be a little bigger. Let's keep actually, we're going to do that, finish that last 1/4 inch. And you notice that we lost that line. So I'll go ahead, because I'm in the object line right now, it's going to already default to that size. So that's great. And then I need to make some of the other radiuses. So we'll make this one at 1/2 inch, and then select the two lines, perpendicular lines. All right, hit escape. And then that is the radiuses that we have here. Now I need to dimension all these too. So let's figure this out. So you have the tools, but if you go to the toolbars in AutoCAD, you'll actually see, if you select dimension, this toolbar. And believe it or not, this is how all the tools used to be in AutoCAD some versions ago. So the other thing we're going to do here is we want to go to the dimension style manager, and we're going to make a new one, and we're going to call this mechanical. So go ahead and make a new one and type in mechanical, and then say continue, and then it automatically brings up the menu, and we're going to make some changes here. And so the advantage with doing it this way, as opposed to the properties, is it's kind of meta. It'll do everything this way. You don't have to go back and change it. Extremely helpful and efficient. So in this case, we're just going to follow the drawing that we have, and we're going to go first in the fit and make sure that we're doing the annotative at the default setting, which is 1 inch. And then we're going to basically go through almost all of these. We'll go to the lines and the symbols and the text. Let's go to the text here. And so you can notice here it's horizontal. There's a lot of different standards here, but we're going to just make this fit the current size. And so it's 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. For the arrow size also, we're going to do that. So on these lines, just follow along here the best you can. So the spacing and the arrow size here. And 0.25, and you typically want to do these the same size. So if you the center marks, and you typically want to do all these, and there's other ways to do it, but this is the way to just manually input those. All right, and that's going to be our current. So make sure that you hit set current. Otherwise, it defaults to whatever you had before. All right, and then there's also a little key here so we're going to go make sure that we're in the dimensions here before we start getting too ahead of ourselves. All right, and there's so a couple lines we missed, the center line. Let's make sure we add that. Again, we don't have to go and change it because it's already been done here. So we're going to do, for example, the center mark, right? So go ahead and select center mark, and there it is. And that's a little nice feature. You don't have to manually do it. And then let's go ahead and make that line. And so what I'll typically do is extend these beyond. I'm probably getting a little lazy here, but it's just an easy feature you have here. So I'm not actually selecting the center of that. I'm just using that as a guide. All right, when I hit the top here in the menu bar, it actually just centers everything, which is a helpful feature. All right. So you should be looking at your drawing in addition to what I'm doing here, in case I've missed anything. All right, so now I'm adding dimensions, and I'm just going to go on that menu bar here. And before I do all the radiuses, let's just do the horizontal, and then we'll do the vertical. And then actually that line should be touching, but we're going to add another line here, so we'll be okay. Not touching, but it should be coming down a little further. But we're going to be adding what this center of that angle is. So, oops, it's a little off here. Let's fix that. I'll put this on the intersection. There should always be a little gap between the dimensions and the part. And again, I would look at your drawing, corresponding drawing, just make sure it's accurate in case I've missed anything. All right, so here's the height of this object. Again, I have that little gap there, which is in the default setting that we did. All right, so let's do the other part. And one rule is you never want to dimension hidden lines. There's other ways of figuring that out with section views and the corresponding views, but you never want to dimension to hidden lines. That's a big no-no. You actually see it in a lot of textbooks, believe it or not, but it is not a typical way of doing things because you can get that information other ways. All right, so let's just continue doing this. I still need to do these radiuses, of course, but I'm getting as much as I can here before I do that. And I'm going really quickly through this, so you're going to want to take your time and make sure that you're following all the rules and having the proper spacing. So before I get the radiuses and the diameters, I want to make sure that I have all the linear lines here. So let's go ahead and select the radiuses. Now remember, if it is not a complete circle, you want to use the radius to call it out. If it is a circle, you would use the diameter. That's typically the rule of thumb, which makes pretty much sense there. So a couple more radiuses. I'll do those first since I have that already selected. And then I'm scrolling in and out with my mouse. Makes it a little bit easier so I can verify I'm actually on the line. And then let's go ahead and do this diameter. There's two diameters that I see here. And again, you want to take your time and inspect all this. And I'm kind of zooming in and out. And I'm going really pretty fast here. I see a couple lines I'm missing, but that's okay. I can get back to those later. Okay. So everything looks pretty good here. Let's zoom out. Just go to the top and click it. And then I need to add that text. If you remember, it defaulted. It told us that the typical for the fillets, the radius was 1/2 inch. So I want to go to the text and the multi-line, and then just define where you want this to be. All right. And then I'll just go ahead and start typing. Because I already set the type, I know it's going to fit here. So rounds and fillets, and I'll type in R, space, and then 1/4 inch. I could also type in 1.5, but that's fine, or 0.25. All right, and so everything looks good here. You want to make sure that everything's on the proper radius. Now, I do have the construction lines on, and I'm going to require you guys to do that. You would typically not do that when you're presenting a drawing, but we just want to make sure that you guys are understanding what's involved in setting up these drawings, because this chapter is all about properly setting up the drawings and the layers, and it'll save you so much time in the future. All right, so before I would print it, and you also notice there's like even little features here where you can have items not print. So I probably want to verify this without the construction lines on before I print it. But you can see, just make sure that you have all the needed lines, hidden lines and center lines and all that. And then we're going to go ahead, plot it. And I'm going to do this as a PDF file. And I'm going to go ahead and select the window on my own, and I'll preview this. And I'll scroll out as I'm doing this and make sure I have everything included. And then I'll preview it. And once I verify it, I'll go ahead and select print. And then I'll inspect the drawing. I'm going to just throw this onto my desktop. Typically, you want to label this so you can keep track of it and verify that everything's in order and you have completed the design bracket.